What's up, survivors? Jason here. Today I'm going to be making a safe fire pit for my desert bushcraft shelter. And if you haven't seen my video of me building this desert bushcraft shelter, I'll put a link in the description down below to that video. Or you could check out this card and just click on it and it'll bring you to a playlist of everything that is about the desert bushcraft shelter. So I don't know if this might be like a mini series and then throughout the years just keep on using this area for just random stuff each time that I want to do something bushcraft related in the desert, and then probably later do like a bunch of different videos for cooking and stuff like that. So I might just do something like that. So for today I'm gonna try to make it like a safe area for building a fire, and in front of the shelter and inside the shelter as well, it's just surrounded by duff. And when you get like an ember in duff, it would actually spread underneath all the foliage and all that. So you have to get down to bare earth, and you got to make sure it is actually bare earth. So I do have my folding shovel, so hopefully I can get that done, and it's going to be quite the task. As I'm going to try to finish it today and see where it goes from there. So let's get to removing all of this foliage and duff. So this is the inside of the desert bushcraft shelter, and if you watch the end of the last video, you realize that these sticks weren't there before, because I actually set them in there because if it just happens to rain, yeah, the desert, it's monsoon season, so you never know. So it's just keeping them in there to keep them dry. They're all good dead sticks, and I could definitely use it for a fire. So after the video, I even stuck around a little bit to open up this little area, and it is bare earth, and after digging a little bit you could tell it is wet in this soil. So I could have the fire on top of this, but I want to take an extra safety measure, and I found this block of concrete. It's flat on top, and I'm gonna bring it to here to use that as the base. But I think I have to open up this a little bit more because the embers could still kind of fly away and accidentally set this ablaze. So I think I'm going to end it right there, because I think that should be enough space to prevent anything from floating away too far, and something that floating away that too far won't be strong enough to actually set something on fire, most likely. So let's get this part done. So got my folding shovel. Alright, so just gonna go right underneath and shovel it over. I don't know how much you can tell, but it's kind of deep of how far the duff goes. It's like kind of a mix between dirt and duff, so you still have to get rid of a lot of that as well, because just right here is still a little bit of duff. And then once I start seeing it kind of turn into a really wet type of clay almost, and sandy, that's when I could kind of stop. And you can tell right there, it is pretty deep for how far I had to go to prevent a lot of all this stuff, because there's still a lot of foliage right here, and over time it's kind of falls in, and that's what you don't want to have a fire on top of, because it could still spread from underneath to here, because there's a lot of little dead sticks still inside of here, stuff like that. And a lot of the kind of punky wood, you could get a good ember on those, so you don't want it to happen to a lot of these pieces of wood. Some of them may be a little bit wet, but this one right here is pretty dry. So it's something you have to look into for many different type of environments, not just in the desert and stuff like that. Alright, so I was opening up this area a little bit more because there were a bunch of dead branches right here, and I decided to just cut them. And you don't want dead branches above your fire pit. It was like out to probably around there, and of course got more firewood now. But I was just kind of moving stuff along, and I felt some type of little pin or little sticker and something, and guess what, there's a bunch of this cactus. I think it's barrel cactus most likely, and there are at least 4 of them right here. So I threw the other ones down over here, and you could tell they are dead and have been dead for quite a while, but I still have a lot of these little stickers and thorns and stuff like that. But I don't know. It just kind of surprised me that they're here, but it's good that I found them, because if I would have just set my hand there or something, or just sat down, that wouldn't really feel good. So I might use some of these pieces, the inner little skeleton, because you use those for a little hand drill, and that is almost the size that you want. It might be a little bit smaller, but you could still do if you dry it out and stuff like that. So I have some extra materials to try to make a friction fire one of these days, but I have to figure out how to remove a lot of this stuff. And I just took my saw and just threw it out. Like, come on, there we go. So yeah, quite the little surprise, right? But yeah, doing this, cutting a lot of the dead branches opened up a lot right here, so I could do even more right here. So yeah, let's get back to work. Phew. This is actually taking longer than I thought it would, and I was just using the small folding shovel and it wasn't doing as much. So I got a stick, and it kind of has a hook on the end, and I've just been using it as kind of like a pickaxe and then moving a lot of the foliage. So I just took it like this, swung it in, and just moving all the foliage and stuff like that, because just digging in you get a lot of the dirt as well, and it really takes up a lot of time. So I just freed up a lot of this right there. And then now I still have to worry about the stuff that's kind of mixed in with the dirt and stuff like that, because there's still a little bit of pieces that could definitely catch. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's been over an hour, maybe even an hour and a half. But yeah, that's the space that I got so far. I'm almost done, and once I'm done with this, I can start building the fire pit. It's been about 30 more minutes, probably, maybe a little bit more. And I think this is as good as I'm gonna get it for today. And I kind of leveled up the space right here, just kind of stomping on it and stuff like that. And I believe this is where I'm gonna put the concrete slab. So let's go over there and check it out. Now this is the concrete block that I'm talking about. It is about, let's see, almost 3 to 4 inches thick, and probably around, what's it, 3 to 4 feet long, and that should be enough to make a good fire pit around right there, and a good base to prevent it from spreading. So let's just try to find a way how to get this back over there. Now this is going to be what I'm going to use to get that concrete slab from down there to over here. I'm going to cut these into 2-foot portions, and hopefully I'll get at least probably 3 out of that. And I'm just going to use them as rollers for underneath the concrete slab and pull it with my paracord. And hopefully that'll take out a lot of the weight, and I could get it here a lot easier. So that's going to be a lot of cutting and sawing and all that. I may just kind of saw around it, kind of like beaver chewing, and then just kind of slamming it down and making it break. So I might do something like that. Alright, instead of doing it out there in the heat and just not having good leverage, I'm going to use this little piece right here that I've been using as a little seat and just use it as a little working bench. With this saw, the Bushcraft Laplander, it's going through it pretty quickly actually. And the more I pull up this way, the more of the wood that it gets cut. So it's more of a pull type of saw, I think. It should be, but it still does pretty good going forward and back. But it's better because you get more of the strength pulling back almost. And you don't really want to push too hard or you really flex this and probably break it. So almost done with this piece. I'm going to put this underneath to give it a little axis or pivot point. And I'm just going to keep dropping it until it breaks. Oh, there it goes. Alright, didn't have much to go, but it was a little offset and it was preventing from it breaking apart. So that was the difficult part. Now to do that 3 or 4 more times. Whew. Whoo-wee. That took a lot out of me because this log is pretty thick, and compared to the Bushcraft Laplander, that is a lot of sawing. And I even tried to break it in the middle, and just like a couple inches, maybe even an inch left to even break it, because I just tried to throw it onto a little axis like you saw before and try to break it. But it took a long time to get to the center to where it would just break by itself. But man, I think just this should be enough to pull that concrete slab, because I decided to not cut this one because it would just take too long. So let's get to pulling this thing. Well, it's the next day and I decided to call it quits for yesterday because I ran out of water, and me working out here pretty hard and not having any extra water to go off of, I decided that wasn't really worth the risk, because just overworking your body is a good way how to hurt yourself, and you won't be good for tomorrow or the next day and the day after that. Because if you work yourself too hard, you can't really do much of anything the next day or even later that night. So take it into like a survival type of situation as well, because if you overwork yourself and don't know your limits, you're gonna hurt your body. So take that as a little tip for the day. Well, what I should have done yesterday, instead of just pulling the paracord with my hands, because that's a good way how to ruin your fingers and stuff like that, I should have just grabbed one of these live freshly cut branches and just use that as a handle to pull it away, and just have this take the stress of the cord, and so it doesn't ruin your hands and stuff like that. So I'm gonna cut little grooves on the ends of these so I can attach the paracord on there so it doesn't slip away. So I'm gonna do that real quick and actually start pulling the concrete slab over here. I think I got at least probably halfway, almost halfway to over here. So I should be able to get it done today, hopefully. So here is the little handle that I have for pulling the concrete block. I just quickly just wrap it around here for safe traveling so it doesn't catch onto anything, but it's just a simple little handle. Cut little grooves into it with my saw, and those definitely won't fall out that way. Even if I pull this way, they're not coming undone. So definitely know that's not coming off, and this is gonna take the pressure off my fingers when trying to move that concrete block. What I've also done is cut at least 4 of these branches, good thick branches, but not as big as those. Hopefully that would bring it up off the ground enough to make it roll. The only thing I'm really worried about is just really the curved one right here, so I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use that one. But just those 3 weren't really working out really good, so hopefully this will work out. Look what I found. Big piece, and that would have caught the edge of the concrete block, and I wouldn't have been able to pull it up. So I gotta move this out of the way too. It's still kind of in the way, and it's almost punky. Ooh. Jeez. This part's gonna be kind of the difficult part, because it's a little bit uphill, and then all of a sudden it's downhill. Let's get this started. Almost there. Just need to get over this. Oh, it's starting to turn, right? And I gotta make sure not to run into my shelter. I could just flip it in. Whew. Now I gotta flip it back over, and it should. I kind of want it to be around right here, and hopefully I could move it a little bit with this rope and have enough room. There's a bunch of coyotes just down there. That was really close. I gotta watch out. Finally, I got it to where I think it should be a nice little area. Nothing above it that is too worrying to actually catch anything like that, but I think this is a good little spot to put it. So I decided to ditch the big giant logs and just cut a whole bunch of smaller diameter little limbs, and that worked out much better than those logs did. There's just too much, I think, too much leverage above them, and the concrete barrier or concrete block just kept falling down each one, and it just wasn't getting too far. So with this idea, I think it is much better to cut a whole bunch of little limbs than a big giant log to roll this over, because I don't know why. I thought the bigger logs would have helped it, but take a tip from me, get the smaller diameter limbs than a whole big giant log if you happen to do something like this. And I think that this idea did work out in the end, because I got it here, but it took a little bit longer than I thought. This little puller did its job, and it didn't slip out or anything like that. I didn't have to worry about my fingers getting caught in the cordage and getting really rope burn and stuff like that. But I think after this, I'm going to be making a little ring of rocks to make a fire pit, and then I'm going to make some type of wall barrier around this to prevent any of embers kind of floating off in this little near region that we have right there, because beyond right here there is a ton of little debris, and I don't want that to get caught on fire and stuff like that. So hopefully that wall would most likely prevent a lot of that. So let's get to making this fire pit. Now here is the finished product of my safe fire pit. I may later on upgrade it a little bit by adding walls on the side, but this is majority of what I wanted. I have the ring of rocks, and that's a nice little size hole for a little fire, maybe for cooking and stuff like that, because you don't really need a big fire for the desert, stuff like that. But I found this cinder block type of deal or whatever it is, and there's this like perfect hole right here, and you can make it into like some type of stove. I'm thinking about probably propping it up with these bricks. I think I might have seen another one. I may just grab that and just kind of put them down that way, and then feed in the fire through there, so all the oxygen and all the wood could go in through that side, so it won't really smother out when something on top of like this. So that is the safe fire pit. I got the wall. I just kind of built it up really quickly. I may later on try to change it a little bit, but that is the best I could do for right now. And I believe that this is a really nice fire pit and should be really safe, because it's off the ground, doesn't really spread. A lot of the embers can't really go too far. If it hits this, it'll just like kind of die out, because it's too big of a piece of wood or anything like that to actually catch. Maybe some of the bark that's on this, I may even try to take off some of this bark to prevent some of that. But other than that, this is a pretty safe fire pit, and kind of a distance away from the inside of the structure, and it's a really nice thing. And it's right next to the little seat, so I can just be right here and just chill and look at the fire. So I hope you enjoyed this little video of me making a safe fire pit for my bushcraft shelter. I want to thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.